a bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends, and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be, I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats is restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love, because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
We can get on a plane and take a one-way ride, steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to spear for a night, just to give into the need and leave it all behind.
'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Good morning, folks. It is Thursday, May 28th. You are watching Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I am the People's Pundit, Rich Barris. You can follow me on Twitter if you don't already, right there, at Peoples_Pundit. Mayhem in Minnesota, folks. I mean, what else can we title this show today, right? We'll get into that in a little bit, but let's crunch out some economic data first. It's a big economic calendar day today, and I want to go over it. We had initial jobless claims, first quarter GDP growth. There is a nugget in the initial jobless claims report that I can't believe it's a silver lining, like a real one. Like I don't have to look for a silver lining. There's actually one in there, which if you watch the show and you watch us cover on Thursday, the weekly jobless claims report, you know that I make a big deal over the insured unemployment rate. So let's get into it. And then we'll definitely talk about what's going on in Minnesota. How could we ignore it? Let's save it for the segment. Let's first look at initial jobless claims. All right. And basically, we came in around, when you're looking at numbers this big, if you're off by a couple thousand in the 10, even 5, low 5 figures, then it's a pretty good shot, meaning it's pretty remarkable how close we can actually get to these things. But anyway, they came in this week or the week prior, May 23rd. This is for May 23rd at 2.1 million. I got a lot of questions on Twitter about the lagging, even further lagging data and what that means. We'll answer them today, okay? About what it means for who got PPP loans, who got back on the rolls. Will they count these as jobs created? So how many people are truly unemployed? We'll talk about that more today. The jobless claims hit the forecast and they continue to trend down. That's not the silver lining. That's not the nugget I want to share here. Let's go over it. The U.S. Labor Department reported initial jobless claims rose as expected by 123,000 for the week ending May 23. This is absolutely due to the mitigation efforts to slow the spread of coronavirus. That's a decrease for about 323,000 from the prior report. which was revised, which we'll get into as well, to 2,446,000. All right, forecast ranged from a low of 1.8 million. That was too rosy. Tell you right now, that was just way too rosy, to a high of 2.1 and 38. So we came in real close. So the consensus was 2.1. We came in, while it looks like it was on the high end of the forecast here because it came in just below that high end, the consensus was not near 1.8. That was the low. Most of the forecasts were in the range of reality, which came, so the consensus brought in at 2.1. Roughly 41 million Americans have filed for initial jobless claims as a result of the coronavirus, or not the coronavirus itself, as a result of the efforts to slow the spread of the coronavirus, the strategy of shutting everything down and committing economic suicide on nearly. That is a big number, but 41 million Americans are not continuously out of work. And that is the center of your questions this morning, which I'll get to in a hot minute. Lagging claims data is where the silver lining is. And it's more than really a silver lining. This is good. What we're seeing this week is, these numbers still suck, but it's good to see the direction we're headed in here. All right. There is no more PPP money. It's done. The economies in several states are starting to open back up again. So we need to see some improvement based on the market itself. This was an extremely, historically tight labor market. The tightest we've seen in history, at least in some of these series indicators. So we're hoping to see things move in the right direction quicker, sooner rather than later. And this week we got a nice number. The advanced seasonally adjusted insured unemployment rate fell over 2.5 percentage points to 14.5%. That was for the week ending May 16, because this lags the initial claims report, which lags a week. So it's a 2-week lag. This is the first decline in this number since the start of the crisis. And the rate for the previous week was revised down a tenth of a percentage point from 17.2 to 17.1, which was the all-time high. We started the last 2 weeks or so, if you were watching on Thursday, and I started to see this rate slow. The rate of increase in this number began to slow. It was an all-time low under Donald Trump, which we'll talk about more in a minute. And then it shot up to an all-time high, which we'll also talk about more in a second. And this number has got to come down if we're really going to hope to see improvement in long-term unemployed. If we want to see big jobs numbers at the end of the summer, early in the fall, this rate has got to come down. So watching over the last 2 weeks of a noticeable decline in the rate of increase was solid. That was good. To me, I saw it, and it was a good indicator. We're still not anywhere near where we started here. But now this week, we're seeing a decline, which is, again, 2-week lag. So hopefully next week, we'll either see another nice 2.5 point decline, or we'll continue to see at least trend in the same direction. This is good news. The first high during the current crisis was recorded at 8.2%. That was for the week ending April 4th. The all-time high prior to that was 7% even flat. 7 up. Recorded in May of 1975, which was, as you know, a very deep recession. On April 11th, it rose to 11% and on 12.4 and to 12.4% for the week ending April 25th. Then it shot up, as you can see here, this is the high, to 17.1 for the week ending May 9th. But once we got from that 12.4 to 15.4, which was the following week, once we got that rate, it began to slow. And it only ticked up about a tenth of a percentage point the following week. And then it went to the all-time high, which was unfortunate. We saw a jump, but it was not, these giant jumps in the prior couple of weeks. And now we're seeing a decline to 14.5. Under the Trump administration, this rate had fallen to an all-time low, 1.1%. That was this, that is, well, there's numerous indicators, but that is one that really showed how tight this labor market was. Again, under Barack Obama, we talked about this a million times, labor participation fell. So it was a methodological gimmick that the unemployment rate was also falling. Under this administration, the labor market was very different. It was not a gimmick. Labor participation was rising. Long-term unemployed was falling. The insured unemployment rate was falling to all-time lows. It hovered just off that all-time low by about a tenth of a percentage point since the end of 2018. The only time it ever left 1.2% was to bob back down to 1.1, which it did 3 times leading up until the point where we hit this crisis. And now here we are. That is a real tight labor market. That is true strong demand for labor, which creates upward pressure on wages, which is why we were seeing wage growth under this administration that we just have not seen since the third quarter before the Great Recession. And we're still seeing some of that, but that's also in its own way a gimmick, because a lot of the jobs that went first during this crisis were lower paying jobs, leisure and hospitality. So it was unnatural that it boosted that 12-month rate to 3 or a little bit above 3, like we've seen the last couple of months. That's a little bit unnatural. But before this, we saw 18, 19 consecutive months of wage growth at the 12-month rate, annualized rate of 3% or more. We have not seen that kind of sustained wage growth even before the Great Recession. It wasn't that sustained. All right. So, under the Trump administration, like I said, it fell to all-time low, remained at 1.2% just weeks ago before the coronavirus mitigation efforts. The advanced number for seasonally adjusted insured unemployment, this is going to get into some of your questions, during the week ending May 16 was 21 million and change, a decline of nearly 4 million from the previous week's revised level, which was revised down significantly by 161,000 from 25 to just over 25 to just under 25 million. The 4-week moving average was 22.7 ballpark, which was an increase because this is a 4-week average and it does lag. So some of those really ugly reports are still in there. So that's an increase of 760,000 from the previous week's downwardly revised average, revised down by 40,000 from a little over 22 million to a little under 22 million. All right. So the questions are, Rich, if 41 million people have filed for initial jobless claims, is it safe to say, because long-time unemployment is at 21 million, is it safe to say about 20 million people went back to work? It's safe to, the answer to the question is, it's safe to infer a hell of a lot of people did go back to work. Not anywhere near where it was when we started, which is unfortunate. And I'll show you this. I mean, this is that for you guys who are my chart fiends. You can see it here on the very first chart in this article. The big gold bars, those are continued claims. The smaller ones are the initial claims. And green is the very first initial claim. So that is the headline number of this report. But you can see it's still up there. Still quite a bit, right? There's always going to be one bar missing because it lags the initial claims report. So the answer to the question is, it's safe to infer a lot of people went back to work, but the truth is we really don't know that for sure because these are lagging the initial claims. So you're trying in a way to compare not apples to oranges. It's not, because we're looking at the same numbers and we're looking at the same series indicators. You're just trying to compare last week's apples with apples from 2 weeks ago. And you need to wait for it to catch up. So that's why with this report, it's all about the trend. So we won't know that right now. We will not know that because I know a lot of you are looking forward to the jobs reports and you're going to see ugly revisions, but I know you're looking forward to these summer job reports. In a couple of weeks, say 2-3 weeks, we'll have a much better idea about whether we're going to see these enormous numbers that we were talking about on Tuesday when we talked about Joe Biden's strategy of going after Donald Trump on the economy being very risky. Because we don't know whether or not come August, Donald Trump's administration is going to see this series, which is total increased employment payrolls. We won't know if he beats Reagan, which had under Reagan, we saw 2 back-to-back months of job creation, close to roughly 1 million. And it is absolutely possible, looking at these numbers, we could see much bigger numbers. Like in August, that's 1.5. Absolutely can happen. No doubt. But give it 2-3 weeks. That's rough. That's really the answer to this. The initial claims report, that lags a week. And then these long-term unemployed, that lags too. But at least we're headed in the right direction. The insured unemployment rate came down a lot 2 weeks ago. Let's hope it continues. And then we'll know a lot more about whether we're going to see these big numbers. All right. So the actually advanced number we went over, extended benefits, they actually didn't kick in until last week. There was no state that asked for extended benefits. Last week, we saw that happen. And then again, this week, we're seeing it for May. And it really is, this is for May 9th. The first time we saw them request the extension was May 2nd. This week, extended benefits were available in Alaska, Connecticut, Massachusetts, Michigan, Minnesota, Montana, Nevada, New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania, Puerto Rico, Rhode Island, Vermont, Washington, and West Virginia. The highest insured, the highest insured unemployment rate in the week ending May 9th were Washington, which is at 31.2%. If you remember, they've done a good job to contain this virus. Or at least the numbers have come down. I don't want to give them credit. Not really, not fully, not yet. But the cost was great. They are way above the national average. They're about double the national average. As is Nevada, which is pretty close, 26.7. Florida, you're going to see this number dramatically change in Florida. Right there, it's 25%. We had a big hiccup with our system down here. We had a lot of late reports. These are about the weeks where it's going to start to iron out. On May 4th, 64 out of the 67 counties began phase 1. So you will start to see some dramatic changes in Florida. That's just going to happen. That's already baked into the cake because a lot of our numbers were delayed. So it looks worse than it ever really was, although it was bad. We have tourism down here. We are leisure and hospitality from the, south central part of the state down. It hit us hard, but it will change. Hawaii, 23.4. Michigan, Howell-Whitmer, 23.1. California, 20.6. New York, 19.9. And New York is actually, sometimes I think these numbers look like they're getting better in New York, but then they rise again. All right. And the largest increase in claims, and you can see some of that adjustment in Florida right there, a little over 2,300. But the largest increase still, California, Washington, and New York. Michigan is not, the decline this week in Michigan is not because of the policy. It's simply because these are initial claims. You can only file for this one time and be counted as an initial claim. There's almost nobody left. If people who are going to file for them, or at least the vast majority of people who are going to file for initial jobless claims in that state, we saw such big numbers already that it's like basically there's the pool has been drained. That's basically where I'm going with this. The largest decreases, shocker, were in Georgia. Georgia led this week. They were the first to open. This is a dramatic turnaround from the report we went over last week. Go back and look at it. It's linked right at the top where it says previous week. We always do that. We'll link directly to the source of the report and we'll link to the prior week when it's mentioned in the first paragraph. We do it every single week. If you go back and look at Georgia, it included the period before Governor Kemp decided to reopen the state, taking flack. But now we're starting to see this pay dividends. He opened a little bit before DeSantis, about a week before DeSantis pulled the trigger. So he's reaping they're reaping the benefits of that decision right now. All right. So again, somewhere like New Jersey, those benefits were so big, so quick that sometimes there's only one place you can go when you're up. You can only come down, right? So yeah, basically that's really all we can say about that this week. Next week, look to see whether the insured unemployment rate continues to decline. That is the most, well, not the most important, but that is something that I'm going to keep drilling on you for. And if for those of you who are asking on Twitter about how many people are still out of work, if 41 million filed for the initial claims, but long-term unemployment now is about at 21 million, watch those in the next 2-3 weeks, and we'll get a much better idea of where those numbers are going to go. How many of those people are still truly unemployed? Either way, I mean, we're looking at an ugly, ugly number. But we're going to be hoping, of course, and I hope, doesn't matter whether you're a Republican or you're a Democrat, I hope that you are rooting and pulling for the American worker. I should hope so. It doesn't matter whether you want Trump to fail, you want him to get the credit or not. We should all be hoping that Furman is right. And this ends up being more like an event, a recession-induced event. And we're going to talk about GDP after the first segment, which is going to end here in a couple of minutes. The BP oil spill was an event that caused a sharp decline, but it was very temporary, and it was followed by sharp increases in a rebound, a big rebound. A hurricane, in my state, hurricanes come through once every few years, take everything out. There's a sharp decline in economic activity. We get crushed, but then we bounce back big. And we've done that, by the way, to come in as one of the top growing states, quarter after quarter, year after year. We may get hit by a Dorian. We may get hit by an Irma. Even a Matthew caused some decrease in the West Coast. I mean, the East Coast. Matthew came right up the East Coast of the peninsula, but it was far enough offshore that it wasn't something as akin to like Irma or Dorian. But that whacks us. They come in, they whack us. We have a really bad quarter, but then we bounce back. And so if again, despite your politics, I should hope that you're pulling for the American worker, because that's really who we're talking about here. And it's a nice silver lining. There's a nice nugget in here, but the truth of the matter is it still is ugly business. 41 million new claims is ugly business. So, all right. We're also going to talk about GDP here, and I don't want to spend a whole lot of time. It's not because I don't want to see or talk about how ugly the report is. We're going to talk about, we're going to talk so much about this report. This is a second estimate. And I guess at some point, there'll be a third estimate. I can get that's probably in the story actually, but we're going to see this revised again. So we'll have much more time to talk about GDP. I don't want to spend so much time on it that's what we're doing, constantly harping on these reports. It did, it was a little bit worse. I think 1/10 of a percentage point worse than the advanced estimate, but it's pretty clear. The Bureau of Economic Analysis is pretty clear. And what's, that this was caused by the stay-at-home orders that happened in March, which tells you, despite all the pining and droning on about, the economy slowing down in 2020 and the media attempting to do what they have been doing last 2 years, which was induce a recession, the inverted yield curve, and on, it wasn't going to happen. Barring these stay-at-home orders, it was not going to happen. So what does that mean? It means this is an artificial recession. Now it could end up causing something that's very deep. But if it's artificial, then that at least indicates, as long as we don't blow it or Congress doesn't come in and do something even dumber, like extend unemployment benefits till nearly the end of the summer, and in several states make it so people can collect more than they will make if they go back to work. As long as government doesn't step in and screw it up, we're looking more at an artificial event, an ahistorical one, though. So while we can talk about it and hope that this is going to be something temporary with a big bounce back, we're still looking at an ahistorical event. So we won't know until that data starts to come in. There are going to be long-term consequences. There's no way out of that. It will not be that we simply flip a switch off and flip it back on and everything goes back to the way it was before. That is out of the question. That is wishful thinking. That's not going to happen. The question now is how quickly it's going to come back. How long is it going to take, and how much will it have an impact on the psyche of the American worker? Because ultimately all of this will matter for the election. And it also matters with consumer spending, because you have to be confident to open your wallet. You have to be consumer sentiment, confidence, whichever indicator you want to look at. You have to be confident. You have to. Otherwise, consumer spending will go down. The savings rate will go up. And we're still a 2/3 plus consumer-driven economy. All right. So let's get into GDP, speaking of which. And there's a couple of things that I'm actually going to bring up, that I'm actually going to show you, that probably may not be on the article yet. It's still so early. We're gonna have to do something about this on days like today, where the economic calendar is just so full. I have a rule. I'm just like, nothing goes on People's Pundit Daily until I look at it. Doesn't matter whether it's economic news, doesn't matter whether it's political, doesn't matter if it's an opinion piece, an editorial, a policy paper. I have to look at it first. We have never been fact-checked, and we are never going to get fact-checked, as if I have anything to do with it. Or at least not legitimately fact-checked, like we went over yesterday. I mean, the fact-checkers are also people that have been pushing fake conspiracy theories for 3 years. So it's really a tough thing it's a very big goal. But if I know that if I'm the one who keeps my eye on everything, and we run it through fact checking, then we have just a stronger editorial standard. But the downside to that is on days like today, when the economic calendar is so full, and actually we had durable goods, we had GDP, jobless claims, corporate profits at 10 o'clock, right as we're going on, pending home sales, the Kansas City Fed Manufacturing Index. Maybe, I don't know, folks. Let me marinate on this, but we may actually end up having it, I don't know. Maybe we'll shift it once, or I don't know. Or maybe I'll just I'm not good at delegating authority that I care myself that much about. So if it's about numbers, that's something that can more easily be fact-checked. But it's important for me to make sure that everything's correct. So either we'll adjust something, or we'll just make it so that will go on retroactively on PPD. I don't know. But we'll look into that. Also, because it is almost 10:30 anyway, I have a show announcement tomorrow, Freewheeling Friday. It should go as planned. It should. But it is possible that the show will be at 11 tomorrow. It's possible. And I'll give you plenty of heads up if it is. But tomorrow is like it's like a ghetto situation here. We're gonna have my son, he's a fifth grader going into sixth grade, and they're not having fifth grade graduation the way we would have it because of this, which you guys know how I feel about that. Kid's getting robbed. He busted his butt. He got straight A's all year. He got into a magnet program, and he's being robbed over this virus. Not even the virus itself. He's being robbed by politicians who simply refuse to look at the numbers. Anyway, it'll be a drive-by graduation. So if it was normal, if we were in a normal school year, it would be bumped to 11 o'clock or maybe even noon because it's in the morning, and there would be nothing we could do about it. But because it's a drive-by graduation, like we're in the hood or something, and we're like taking revenge on a rival gang or something, it doesn't even sound like it. But because we're having a drive-by graduation, it may be quicker than usual. So maybe we'll be able to get into the studio and get things going. Yeah, I'm looking at the comments. So a lot of parents obviously know what I'm talking about. One's talking about their daughter, the other one their son. You know what I mean. These children worked hard all week. They wish it was a week. They worked hard, broke their hump, did everything we asked them to do, and they've been robbed because we panicked, because we made poor decisions during an ahistorical event with inaccurate, incorrect, insufficient data. All right. It's 10:31, almost 10:32 on Thursday, May 28th. This month burned by. You're watching Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I got to stop sucking on these cigarettes. I'm the People's Pundit, Rich Barris. You guys can follow me at Peoples_Pundit on Twitter if you don't already. If you guys are watching on YouTube, don't forget to like the page or subscribe to the page before you go, the channel before you go. Give us those thumbs up, hit the little notification bell. That will alert you before we go live. This way you have some time to get there. I'm noticing there's a bigger crowd right off the jump. So you guys are doing this. That's great, because I'm giving you like another maybe week before I change the format in the beginning of the show, where I'll do what is essentially like a little opening monologue. But I don't want you guys to miss it because it's going to be a nice way to kick the show off. On Facebook, don't forget to like the page, People's Pundit Daily, and that will do the same thing as well. Plus, we just want your likes and the subscriptions, of course. So even if you're watching on Facebook, mosey on over to YouTube and subscribe to the channel to show us you support us. And if you watch on YouTube, mosey on over to Facebook and like the page, People's Pundit Daily. We'll love you double for it, all right? And ultimately, the way to support the show, the best way, is to subscribe to PPD, which you can do by going to peoplespunditdaily.com or ppdnews.us/subscribe. ppdnews.us/subscribe. That is the short link that will take you directly to different options. Like I've said in the past, you guys can get like credit tier systems, my chart watchers over there. This way you pay as you need or want instead of having to do a commitment. All right, let's take a look though. It's 10:33 already. Let's take a look at the second estimate for gross domestic product. There's always going to be somebody who says, Rich, when does the next one come out? I will get you the date for the final estimate. Actually, I will do that for you right now. The third and final estimate for first quarter of 2020 is June 25th, 8:30 a.m. We'll put it up. We'll, of course, have a show that day, so we'll go over it. But it is June 25th for those of you who mark the calendars, my calendar people out there. All right. So the second estimate for the first quarter was negative 5%. It's flatly, which is in the article, and we will show you. It is absolutely, this is if you take away anything, take away this. It is absolutely the result of the stay-at-home orders. Okay? So regardless of what you remember hearing about in the media, whether it was CNBC, CNN Money, whatever, regardless of what you heard, the first quarter was highly unlikely to be negative. There has never been a negative quarter under Donald Trump until now. Under Barack Obama, the first quarter for gross domestic product was essentially a throwaway quarter. They were very weak, and we'll see them right now. They were very weak or negative, and then growth would pick up in the second quarter. And depending on what we did for the rest of the year, that was, of course, your annualized growth rate. Barack Obama and Joe Biden having the weakest historical growth rate since the Great Recession. Since the Great Depression. Sorry. Right. Now, in my head, I'm thinking because of the Great Recession being such a deep event, we should have seen a bigger bounce back. They should not have had such weak growth, but they did. Because they were heavy on regulations. They were heavy on new big programs like Obamacare, which absolutely hurt job creation. Don't even have to take my word for it. You could take the left-wing CBO's word for it. Obamacare was a job killer. It cost $2.4 million when the CBO first estimated it. That's a lot of jobs. And under Obama as well, because they like to tout the actual number of jobs created. But this show is called Inside the Numbers for a reason. And if you were to look inside those numbers, you will see that Barack Obama was a part-time economy. A part-time, low-paying, no-wage growth economy. Sure, there were jobs created. Would you like fries with that? Would you like fries with that job application? That's what there was. I mean, it was garbage. Or professional jobs. So it was like you were either an elitist or you had a low-paying job. The gap between the rich and poor got dramatically wider under the so-called progressive Barack Obama. All right. So anyway, let's take a look at this. But the point I'm trying to drill home here is despite all the crap about the inverting of the yield curve, this would not have been negative. There was no recession coming, barring the coronavirus. We started to add these gray lines to our charts because of the media's coverage. The shaded areas to indicate a recession. So every series indicator we released, which all of them have charts and historical data, you would be able to compare what that indicator did during prior recessions to see for yourself whether or not you thought we were headed for a recession. We were not. It was not going to happen. Donald Trump was going to go into November with 3% or greater GDP growth to tout. And that's it. And that was their reality before this. All right. Anyway, coronavirus mitigation efforts led to the first negative reading under the Trump administration. We are a data journalism site, right? And if it is a new or a first or a record, a low, a high, it is news. And that is news. This is the first negative quarter. The weakest quarter, the weakest reading under Donald Trump was his quarter during which he took over for Barack Obama. So it was not really his full quarter. His first full quarter was strong. But the first quarter recorded under him was weak. It was a very typical quarter for Barack Obama. All right. So the Bureau of Economic Analysis reported the second estimate for Q1 GDP in 2020 came in at negative 5%, slightly worse than the advanced estimate in the consensus forecast, slightly. In the fourth quarter of 2019, real GDP rose 2.1%. Solid rate of growth for the fourth quarter. Nothing to sneeze over. Right here, you guys can see, just as what we were talking about before, some of these quarters under Barack Obama, you see them, negative 1. If you go through, and then you could see actually in the second quarter it would pick up. It would bounce back pretty strong, then taper off to the end. 1.7, 0.5. I mean, it's very much a pattern. You would see Barack Obama's first and fourth quarters be very weak, which a lot of economists would say, well, that's how it goes. And the second and third quarters would be bigger and beef up the annual rate. But under Donald Trump, we actually didn't see that. Under Donald Trump, we just saw solid growth throughout it was consistent. We didn't have these big spikes, but we also didn't have these big declines. It was consistently around 3% annually. It was nice. It was a nice, solid, consistent growth, which creates consistent upward pressure until bang, negative 4.9. So, I mean, clearly, if you look, let's do the year to date. That's not the best. You get my point, though. It's clearly out of the trend. There was nothing to suggest that that would happen. There are the recessions where the red is. Recession, according to the council, the textbook definition, is two back-to-back quarters of negative or declining growth, significantly declining growth in the rate of GDP. So now, I mean, it's going to happen. We're going to have, because the second quarter is going to be ugly too, really ugly. So we're going to have what is a textbook recession. That is done now. That is baked in the cake. The question now is about third quarter. And we showed you some of those changes from JP Morgan and Chase. They were only looking at about 18% growth. I'm talking about big GDP numbers, 18%. But now they've revised that into the 20s. So they're seeing a big bounce back. All right, let's move on. Forecast range from a low of negative 5.2 to a high of negative 4.5, 4.5. The consensus was 4.8. So, like I said, we're a little bit worse. The initial estimate was 4.9, a decline of 4.9. So it was revised by 1/10 of a percentage point. Not a big revision. And only 0.2 off the consensus. But still, nevertheless, slightly worse than thought. But the BEA said, and the quote is right here, the decline in the first quarter GDP reflected the response to the spread of COVID-19, as governments issued, quote, stay-at-home orders in March. This led to rapid changes in demand as businesses and schools switched to remote work or canceled operations, and consumers canceled, restricted, or redirected their spending. Again, it's noteworthy because we heard from the media 6 months into the last 6 months of 2019. All we heard about was the coming recession. There was no recession on the horizon. It was not coming. They got their wish now. But the stupid talk about the inverted yield curve, trade, Trump's trade negotiation strategy, all of that was bunk. Total bunk. In fact, with the trade situation, if you look in this report, the decline in the trade deficit boosts GDP. When the trade deficit narrows, GDP has less sliced, total GDP has less sliced off of it. Because it's a deficit, it's going to slice off of GDP growth, but it's a matter of how much it's going to take. And if you have ballooning $70, $80 billion trade deficits, it's going to take a lot more. Under Donald Trump, we had bigger surpluses with services and smaller deficits with goods. So the total balance, the total trade imbalance was a lot less, around negative 40 and change billion. That was a boost to GDP. So that talk never made sense. It never made sense. All right, anyway, real gross domestic income fell 4.2% in Q1 2020 after rising 3.1, that's a revised number, in the fourth quarter of 2019. That's solid growth. That is solid growth in real gross domestic income. In fact, Dan Mitchell, who writes on PPD at the Cato Institute, he's a libertarian, so if you guys are Trump supporters, you probably won't agree with him on half of the stuff he writes, more than half. He's very anti-tariff. But he'll tell you and he'll make the case, and he has for columns on PPD many times, that gross domestic income is actually a better measure of economic growth than gross domestic product. All right, the average of real GDP and real GDI, which is a supplemental measure of U.S. economic activity that equally weights GDP and GDI, that fell 4.6 in the first quarter, after it rose 2.6 in the fourth quarter of 2019. All right, so this article is being updated. We will go basically ahead and, you know what, I'll leave that up there for, no, we won't. Let's kill that. All right. So basically, what do I want you to take away from this? There was no damn recession coming. It was not coming. It was not happening. the survey of consumers, which has been worse than the Conference Board's Consumer Confidence Index. Richard Curtin over there, he's always like, there's all these all-time highs in this index, and Richard always has to find some negative thing to put in his damn statement every press release. They do a preliminary reading, and then they do a final reading for each month. And Richard Curtin would constantly find these negative things to say, but in truth, in the end, we were still looking at the longest period, and we surpassed the 90s, that period during the 90s into early 2000. We surpassed it for the longest sustained period of economic growth since the mid 1800s. And there was no recession on the horizon. Not in the survey of consumers, not in the Consumer Confidence Index, even manufacturing, which in the first 2 years of the Trump administration boomed. People talked about in the third year a slower rate of growth. But again, it goes to the rule that sometimes when you're just at the top, there's nowhere else to go but down, right? So it wasn't that manufacturing was like weakening. It's just that it had a boom that we did not see under either Obama or Bush, by the way. It was the most manufacturing jobs, people filling them, not just open jobs, the most people employed in the manufacturing sector since before the WTO. Since before NAFTA. And what we saw in the final year before this crap was a slowing down in the rate of growth in manufacturing. It was just not booming like it did in the first 2 years. It wasn't that it was, slowing down. Even with them, if you look at every regional index from the Federal Reserve, you have the Federal Reserve, Bank of Philadelphia, they do the Manufacturing Business Outlook Survey for the Mid-Atlantic region, the Empire State Manufacturing Survey, you might have guessed it, Federal Reserve Bank of New York, they do Northeastern Manufacturing. The Texas one, which is less cited, that's the Federal Reserve Bank of Dallas. That's the Texas Manufacturing Outlook Survey. I mean, I could just keep going. Kansas City, Richmond, none of them were showing slowdowns in output or recessions. They were showing slowdowns, but I'm talking about contraction. There was no contraction. Even in the industrial production report from the Federal Reserve, we saw a slow in the rate of growth, but capacity utilization was still high. There was no contraction, except for the typical, sometimes utilities would be off because of weather patterns, or manufacturing would get hit because of the strike, the GM strike. That hurt manufacturing for a little bit. But nothing sustained and nothing to indicate that the media was going to get their recession before this happened. That simply was not going to happen. And yes, we are discussing GDP. For those of you who just came in, we are discussing GDP. After the break, we will get into what's going on in Minnesota. And I was going to do that first, but here's why I didn't. Isn't this really all about jobs in the end? Right? Or not all about it. If this is about race relations, I'm not talking about that, and policing. But the more the labor market worsens, or the worse the labor market is, the more people are home, the more free time people have, the more civil unrest and disobedience you're going to see. That is a general rule of thumb. These are, we talked about deaths of despair caused by this strategy. There are other things too that people generally do not talk about, that we should be talking about. I don't know about your neighborhoods. I don't know where you guys live. But during this lockdown, and even still now, the litter on the street in my city has gotten significantly worse. I don't know if you guys have had the same problem. Let me know in the comment section. I'll pause for a second to see. But in our city, the litter has gotten tremendous. We have one of the reasons why we want to move and why we made the decision to do what we did But this city was becoming like panhandler central. There's like a panhandler on every street corner here. And that has gotten even worse, which I didn't think would be possible. And I'm not saying this is like one of those heartless guys, like, you know, all these damn panhandlers. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying it's gotten very bad, and it's gotten much worse since this whole strategy started. I'm curious to know if that happened to you guys as well. But yeah, and we have a great state. I love this state. That's right. But there are these unintended consequences. I imagine, I don't know, neighborhoods are, every neighborhood's a little bit different. But I imagine a lot of that litter, has to do with maybe teenagers not being in school. They're walking down the street in the neighborhood with their friends at like midnight, throwing a can of beer on the street in front of the house. A can, multiple cans. The other day, somebody had a party on our corner. We live on a corner. Somebody essentially had a party. I go outside and there's bags of McDonald's and beer cans on the corner by the sewer drain. I mean, it's just this, like I said, we've had some issues even before this happened, but it's gotten worse. We have family who still live up north. They're telling me New York City is a dump right now. That it's like pre-Giuliani days. It's getting to be like pre-Giuliani. And for those of you who lived in the city during that time, you know what I'm talking about. You could not go to the ATM at night to get money. It was not safe. There was somebody sleeping there anyway. Trash everywhere. Garbage everywhere. That's why, frankly, folks, I'm moving to Hallmark America. All right? Because I'm over it. And when you see these declines in economic activity, things were getting better. During the Trump economy, things were getting better. They were. And it was not the same under Barack Obama. It was not. They had to get city ordinances to stop the panhandling. It's coming back now. But under Barack Obama, this was like we had tent cities. I mean, you see all of the stuff on TV. You guys are Tucker fan. You'll see Tucker cover various cities out in California, Seattle too, in Washington. This place was getting bad. But then it got, it got shut down, but it's also just, it really is trickle down. It really is. The better the economy gets, the less of these societal issues, whether they be social as well, the less of that we see. And in a place like Minnesota, I'm going to show you, they have a beef. They got a beef. We have video footage we're going to show you, but then we're going to show you what they did as well last night, which is just sad. Have you seen up until now, and riddle me this, folks, and I was trying to save this till 11, but because we're piggybacking off of the economic data, this is the point to be done. Yeah, I'll send you that right now. So you know what? Taking a quick time out to send that to people on Periscope. Here, Scopers. Here's the link. Yeah, I'll send you guys the, I'll do it right now. There you go. It's on. Oh, crap. I hit the wrong thing. Sorry about that. Let's do it again. It's hard to do this to your face. It's hard to face it, right? It's hard to face to do the show. And then, but yeah, if you guys have requests like that, like a link, of course, I'll shoot it to you. Just let me know. You live. Producer Laura's laughing at me. I tried. I did. I'll let you handle that stuff. All right. There's the link. But yeah, I'm piggybacking off of this segment about economics and what the indicators that came out today, because before we head to the break here, think about this. Have you seen these massive demonstrations under Donald Trump like we saw under Barack Obama? And I mean, I'm not talking about against Donald Trump. Like the Women's March we had. Those were overtly political, non-organic demonstrations. What I'm talking about is civil unrest, violence, and disobedience like we saw under Barack Obama. Until last night, did you see cities burning like we saw in Ferguson? Did you see these massive protests about, police abuse? And most of the cases, by the way, well, you're going to find out, I have a very different opinion on this case than most. Even the case in Georgia. That is not a clear case of somebody murdering a poor jogger who was running down the road. If you watch all of the footage, the man was casing stuff out to rob. In Georgia, you have, by the way, he was a former cop. In Georgia, you have every right to effect a citizen's arrest. You do not have to back down if you have a gun and somebody comes up to you and tries to take that gun off of you. Doesn't matter whether you're following him and waiting for the police to come. People don't like that. Tough crap. You shouldn't have been casing homes and trying to rob crap. That man had history with him. He knew who he was. In a 2013 arrest, he tried to toss his weapon and the evidence. So what do we know? For all we know, he could have been following him to make sure before the police come, he didn't toss it. He didn't toss anything that he might have taken. That is not a clear-cut case. Trayvon Martin was not shot by a racist white guy. George Zimmerman. George Zimmerman, the schmuck that he is, was well in his right to defend himself and shoot Trayvon Martin in the state of Florida. That verdict was a correct verdict. Michael Brown never put his hands up and said, don't shoot. No, he did not. He tried to remove a police officer's weapon, and he assaulted a police officer who then defended himself and killed him. As even African-American witnesses testified to the grand jury. As even Eric Holder's Justice Department concluded was the case. So don't give me this crap. But in this case, and I'm going to show you the video, this is very different. And why I get so mad is because it gives these baiters, these leeches of society, the Al Sharptons, it gives them a voice when these scumbags do things like this. And if you're a conservative, you should always be skeptical of whether or not police are abusing their authority. The police are the government. Conservatives tend to focus on the federal government. But state governments can be tyrannical too. Local governments can be tyrannical too. As we're finding out during these science and data-driven stay-at-home orders that are being and have been extended despite there not actually being what science and data are. You should always be skeptical of what the media says. Absolutely. Always. But definitely be skeptical of whether or not police are abusing their authority. And as we're going to show you after the break, this case is not Trayvon Martin. This case is not Michael Brown. But at the same time, burning your auto store down to the ground, burning poor advanced auto down to the ground is not the answer either. But I would submit to you before we hit this break, which we're going to do in a few seconds. But I'd submit to you and think about this during the break, and we'll talk about it more on the other side. I submit that we would not and do not see these acts of civil unrest and violence during times when the economic prosperity is abundant. If the economy had continued to flourish, there would just simply not be this much anger out there right now. This much frustration out there right now. I heard thoughtful people yesterday that were at that protest. Thoughtful people. People the right could reach. Are there some that are just impossible? Of course. but there were thoughtful people out there. And this, again, this is not the same thing. This is not Michael Brown. All right. Anyway, it is 11 o'clock. Just turned a little bit ago. And on Thursday, May 28th already. God, I'm blind as a bat. Got to go get more contacts. You're watching Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I am the People's Pundit, Rich Barris. You guys can follow me right there at People's_Pundit. I'm going to take a break. I'll be back in however long it takes for the Bowen Band to sing Bad Habit. And then we'll be back in a hot minute and we'll go over what happened in Minnesota. Then we'll take your questions, roll it in till tomorrow, Freewheeling Friday, just in case my son's drive-by, bang, bang, graduation runs over. All right. And it's only an hour show. Hoping it's not going to be, but let's save some time for questions before that. See you guys on the other side of the break.
How much you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be. I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats is restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love. Because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
We can get on a plane and take a one-way ride. Steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to spear overnight. Just to give into the need and leave it all behind.
'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
And we're back. That was the Grammy considered band, Bowen Band. Link is in the YouTube if you guys want to check out their website. That is Bad Habit. And that is the theme song to People's Pundit Daily, because I am your bad habit, right? Every day, Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. Also, too, as always, if you guys know somebody you'd like to see showcased and think they have talent, you can contact us at contact@peoplespunditdaily.com. Either Laura and I or we'll listen to it. And if it's good, we'll put it up and we'll give you guys some exposure. If you know anybody, just contact@peoplespunditdaily.com. Don't forget, YouTube watchers, to subscribe, and Facebook watchers to like the page, People's Pundit Daily. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, like the page. And of course, the ultimate way to support the show is to subscribe to PPD by going to ppdnews.us/subscribe. ppdnews.us/subscribe. And to those who have done it, thank you. We love you for it. That's how we bring you this stuff. All right. So last night, let's talk mayhem in Minnesota. All right. Protests erupted in Minnesota, Los Angeles, and Memphis, Tennessee. They called them protests, but in Minnesota, it was a freaking riot. Full bore riot, violence, burning the town. Hundreds of people gathered to protest and then trash the city over the death of George Floyd. All right. On May 26th, George Floyd was suffocated when he was handcuffed on the ground by a Minneapolis police officer while several others looked. And the governor now is calling in the National Guard. Democratic governor, by the way. He's calling in the National Guard in Minneapolis to combat the looting and the rioting. Because, I mean, we're beyond the point of protest now. All right. What happened here is, and I'm going to, you know what? Can we share this Vice thing? Let's give Vice some credit. Vice did a good job here. So let's go ahead and showcase them. So this is an article about a new video that appeared that basically undermines the police account of what happened. When the first video came out, and I'm going to show you it. When the first video came out, we couldn't see what happened that led up to the confrontation. All right. The police said, and here, let's get the quote right here. He was ordered to step from his car. This is the Minneapolis Police Department. He was ordered to step from his car. After he got out, he physically resisted officers. Let's look at the first take. And I just want to point this out. I should have had my good buddy Barnes on today, but I'll shoot Robert a call and ask him to come on. We in the past have worked on cases together where he's been in the media. I'm not. I don't like. Robert likes the limelight. I don't like it. But conducting voir dire research for other cases of police abuse. All right. And what I mean by that is voir dire is jury research, right? So again, it's not that I'm not a lawyer here, but I am familiar with these cases. And I've been in the past actually hired on national high profile cases. I should have brought him on to discuss it today, but I'll reach out to him today and get his thoughts on it, because he once told me, and I'm going to share it with you because it's really profound. He once told me, when I asked him why the media wasn't covering what clearly were cases of police abuse, and it not necessarily only white police officers. I mean, multiracial police officers, a police force. There's like no big city super majority white police force anymore. New York City is majority minority, the NYPD. But we would have cases of clear-cut cases of police abuse. And I once asked him why it was like very difficult for us to get the AP's attention or to get somebody's attention to cover these stories. And he told me something that was really profound, and he was absolutely right. Because ever since he did tell me this, when a story or a headline makes national headlines, a case like this makes national headlines, I always put it to like the Barnes test off the jump. And he told me they don't like clear-cut cases. They want cases in which they can frame a narrative that'll get us to fight with each other. The right versus the left, white versus black, whatever. They want us to fight each other. In a clear-cut case where everyone can agree, whether you're a Republican, you're a Democrat, you support Trump, you support Hillary, or supported Hillary, now Joe Biden, whether you're white or you're black, if it's a case where we all can agree with each other, then there's no sensationalism there. There's certainly no, but low risk of rioting, low risk of things blowing up like this. Definitely low risk that Republicans will be able to reach across the aisle. They want cases that divide. They want cases that pin us against each other. They want cases that keep the political coalitions in line. And those are the cases they choose to showcase. Why? Because white people, Georgia's a great example. White people Republicans, people who do not share the same life experience as the people in urban neighborhoods, they're going to look at this and step back and they're going to say, you know what? Well, what was that guy doing in that abandoned building? Right? To the left, it's, oh, that doesn't matter. These guys chased him down and gunned him down. They want us to fight over it. George Zimmerman's a great example. George is a schmuck, but he had a right to defend himself. They don't want that. So they don't believe that. They want to get rid of stand your ground. But it's a great case to get us to fight each other. Because those who are not invested in seeing change in these areas and in these neighborhoods, how police interact with the African American communities, they're not invested. It doesn't happen to them. They're not impacted. They tend, and this is just a matter of fact, I'm not trying to piss anybody off here, but they tend to take a step back and look at each individual case on a case-by-case basis on its own merit, whereas people who are the victims of this, the victims of a police abuse on a day-to-day basis, they have a snap judgment as well. And the media loves that. They want us to fight with each other over this stuff. And when he told me that, I was like, you know what? That makes a lot of damn sense. It does. Michael Brown, another perfect example. To people who want to make their bones pretending like it's still the era of Martin Luther King and Malcolm X. To them, Michael Brown put his hands up. He said, don't shoot. And a white cop gunned him down because he was black. To those not invested, they look at the grand jury testimony. They look at the report from Eric Holder's Department of Justice. They take the ballistic evidence and they look at it on its own merit. Whose version of events does it support? That's a great, but it doesn't matter how much evidence you put in front of the people who see oppression everywhere. It doesn't matter. To them, it will never matter. No amount of evidence will matter. And it gives the media the perfect case to get us to choke each other to death, to fight, to hate each other, to vote against each other. Those are the cases that work for them. So when you have a clear-cut case that everybody can agree on, you will be shocked how hard it is to get the attention of the AP or the New York Times or the Washington Post. They don't give a damn about those cases. They want the cases where we all fight each other. This one appeared to be one of those cases because the video that initially surfaced, which I'm going to show right now, did not show you the beginning of the confrontation. And people, of course, everyone deserves the presumption of innocence, and police should be respected. They take a very big risk every day that they leave the home. And that's what I said to when I would speak up in support of Darren Wilson. Officer Wilson is allowed to go home to his family too at night. It's a tough job. They deserve at least the benefit of the doubt. But this case appeared to be one of those cases where we could argue on those merits until the other day. Let's first show the video here. It's disturbing. I'm going to tell you guys right now, it's very disturbing. So, it is what it is. I just want to give you guys a little bit of a warning. You'll hear him plead that he cannot breathe. Let's just roll it. Viewer discretion is advised.
He ain't even resisting arrest.
I cannot breathe.
You just a grown, you're a tough guy. You're a tough guy, huh? I say you're a tough guy. You're not even resisting arrest, bro.
His whole nose is
Fight with him.
Bro, but why you just sitting there? He ain't doing nothing now. Put him in the car.
It'll kill me.
How long y'all gotta hold him down?
This is why you don't do drugs, kids.
It ain't about drugs, bro. Y'all understand
Yeah,
that?
y'all don't gotta put y'all
His neck, bro.
right.
He is human, bro.
His nose is
But I'm saying you
bleeding.
can put him in the car. That's some
We
bum
tried
ass
that
shit.
for 10 minutes.
That's some bum ass shit, bro. That's some bum ass shit, bro. Y'all know that is. You don't gotta sit there with your knee on his neck, bro.
He's talking, he's fine.
Bro, he ain't crying, bro.
I've been watching it the whole time.
All right. I'm not going to have that run again. I'm shocked that guy lasted as long as he did. All right. He's got the police officer has his knee on his neck. He's not flush on the ground, which is why it took as long as it did. But he cut off the carotid artery, doing that like a rear naked choke would do or a front collar choke would do. And when you're, anybody, or I'm not going to pull a freaking Hannity like my buddy James told me he did last night. Every time something happens, Hannity decides he needs to tell us about what a mixed martial artist he is. All right. But anybody who knows, you understand when that is applied and the carotid artery is closed off, it induces unconsciousness. But then the ref comes over and pulls somebody off. Or before they go out, they tap out and that match is over. When you watch, if you guys are like WW or MMA watchers, MMA, sorry. The ref comes over and he ends it. But in real life or in the military, whatever it may be, on the street, if you do not let go, you will deprive the brain of oxygen. The heart will race very quickly to try to force the blood to circulate. And you'll either die from suffocation or in some cases you die from cardiac arrest because your heart works so damn hard, it winds up blowing the hell up and your aorta fails. You can see on his face that man is scared, that he can't breathe. People are clearly telling him, you're choking the hell out of him. Let him, why do you got to do this? In the video, he's saying, I can't breathe. Yeah, Lord have mercy is right. It's a disturbing video. But in the end, they do not. And it's a matter of him saying he cannot breathe. And the police, that is not a maneuver that you're going to learn in the police academy. Boot on neck, knee on neck. That is not something you're taught in the damn police, in the damn police academy. The procedure is, and I've never been a cop, but the procedure is when they are down and they are cuffed, they are no longer a threat. And it almost doesn't even matter what happened before. It almost doesn't matter because now the threat has been neutralized. They're down. And when somebody had said, why do you got to do this? Why don't you just put them in the car? They say, we tried that for 10 minutes. And again, the police statement, just to reread it to you, he says, he was ordered to step from his car. After he got out, he physically resisted officers. There is numerous clips since then that have come out that contradicted the police story. And that is why we got the rioting we got yesterday, the anger we got yesterday. Here's a new clip. Check this out and just look for yourself. All right, he's down. You guys should be able to hear me. This is Hat Tip CBS. He's down and he's cuffed, hands behind his back. They get him up. I mean, again, he doesn't appear to be resisting arrest here, right? Looks like it hurts, but he's not running. It looks like he's in pain. And he is a big guy. That's important to keep in mind. I mean, he looks like a fit guy, but again, they go out of view there, but you can see the shadows. He makes it to the car. And then, so it does not support what the police version of events says. All right. And there is another angle, by the way, Benjamin Crump, who I typically have not liked in the past. If you remember, he's a lawyer. He represented the family of the Martin family, the Trayvon Martin family. During People's Pundit Daily, there's an Asian cop there. I mean, we're not just talking about the white cop that everyone's showcasing because apparently he's a Trump supporter. All right. But that is Joy. There, you guys are making you really are making great observations. Neither of those two, they later are the ones who are sitting back in the other video as another cop does it. which is why the media is having a field day, because apparently they found this guy was like a Trump supporter on social media, and it looks bad. The president, for his, to be fair to Donald Trump, to President Trump, I actually get it for you. He has ordered, all he can do is have the Department of Justice look into it and have them wrap up the case correctly and have them do oversight. That's really all he can do. And to his credit is the word I'm looking for here. He's done that. So it doesn't really, some of these criticisms are a little bit crazy. Also, tomorrow we'll get to it. Tomorrow's going to be Freewheeling Friday, but I did want to talk about the FISA stuff with Donald Trump, and we will, because by tomorrow we'll have this wrapped up. But he wrote on Twitter to this: "At my request, the FBI and Department of Justice are already well into an investigation as to the very sad and tragic death in Minnesota of George Floyd. I have asked for this investigation and will be expedited, and greatly appreciate all of the work done by local law enforcement. My heart goes out to George's family and friends. Justice will be served," he says. But to the people on the ground, their general sense is they don't believe it. And their general sense is that justice is not going to move quick enough. Nobody ever said justice was fast. Justice is not a timeline. It's like another one of these terrible predicaments we're in as a society, where we're built on these foundational principles, these tenets, these ideas, these ethos, and nobody really understands what they mean anymore. Like nobody knows, nobody's sitting around and reading Marcus Tullius Cicero, reading his definition of justice in the laws. Nobody really understands it. We expect to be protected by these principles, but we don't have a great understanding of what they are. Nothing about justice has to be swift. That's not what justice means. It certainly doesn't mean knee-jerk reactions and indictments at all cost. Even if somebody's guilty. I mean, justice is a funny word like that. Another case down here, the Casey Anthony, made national headlines. They blew that, man. The prosecution and the police blew that case. The jury's verdict was the just verdict. Did she probably kill her little girl? Probably. Maybe it was an accident. Maybe it was, blatant disregard for the child's life, negligence. But they certainly didn't prove any of that in the courtroom. And they went outside the boundaries of their authority and the law to try to do so. So it was a just verdict. They did not meet their burden. So justice is a funny thing. It's not like this idea that people have in their head. And this is definitely not justice. And if it doesn't hat tip, I will hat tip when we come back, because he should get the credit. That's not justice. That's stupidity. That's stupidity. Burning your own neighborhoods down, looting. Again, I would ask and submit, did we see this kind of behavior? And there's the hat tip right there. He deserves that credit. Max Nestorat on Twitter. This is a good follow. You may not agree with him, but he is a good follow. All right. and again, that's not justice. Burning down Advanced AutoZone is not justice. Looting Advanced Auto, looting Walgreens, CVS, all of these stores, even mom and pop stores in the Black community, to the point where the governor of Minnesota has to call in the National Guard. That is not justice. People, that is, in much of it, that is nothing more than low end of society using an event like this to rob their fellow community members. And again, this really does piggyback. I would submit to you the question, do you guys remember how bad the civil unrest was under Barack Obama? These events were like every 3 to 6 months. We did not see that for the most part. We just have not seen it under Donald Trump until now. Until now. When the economy gets bad, then civil unrest rises. Yeah, I mean, aside from like Antifa, like we did see that. But those, again, those aren't organic, movements or like organic events. That's organized political opposition. But when society is not in a period of prosperity, you will see a lot more violence. You will see a lot more looting. You will see a lot more lighter fluid all over the ground waiting for someone to light a match. That's basically the best way I could put it. And that's very unfortunate because none of that's going to bring George Floyd back. None of it's going to advance the cause for real. If you're, really a true believer in police, in fighting police brutality, whether it's against whites or black people. I come from a neighborhood, and Laura could attest to this. I'm sure she'll tell you about it in the comment section. The color of your skin really didn't matter. If you were doing something wrong, you were going to get abused by the police. I mean, the color of your skin really had nothing to do with it. Now, if you weren't doing something wrong, and truth be told, they just leave you alone. But if you were, they rode you, and it was bad. But if you do have experiences like this, and I would urge a lot of people on the right to open their mind a little bit, because you don't share the experiences that these communities share. You really don't. So it's easy to pass judgment. It's much harder to put yourself in somebody else's shoes. And when we talk about election forecasting, I tell you guys this all of the time. The biggest reason people miss these elections, these calls are always so bad, and they're bad in one direction, is a forecaster's inability to look at the world through the eyes of another person. That's the biggest reason. They see it how they see it, or how they want to see it. And it's very much the same with other issues. Very much. In this case, it's, that is a dangerous city, by the way. To be a cop, it is a dangerous city, as a lot of cities are around this country. So, I'm not trying to take that out of the equation. But in this case, this isn't even if what the police officers are claiming is true. These are not police procedures. In New York, and God forgive me, I forgot his name, but in New York, the rear naked choke case, when that cop came up, using a rear naked choke was okay. This was never okay. Nobody is teaching cadets at the police academy to put their knee or boot on the back of a cuffed man's neck. Nowhere in no police academy around the country are you going to find that. So even if the police officers were telling the truth about what happened before that video, the first one, where you can hear him screaming, and begging because he can't breathe. Even if that was true, there are other procedures. That is not a department sanctioned move, folks. It's not. And then anywhere in the country I've heard of, when the perpetrator is cuffed, when he is cuffed, it is over. It really doesn't even matter what happened before. Doesn't matter how much of a fight they put up. When he's cuffed, it's over. The perpetrator has been neutralized. The threat is neutralized. It is over. There is no reason to keep him with the knee on the neck. Don't do drugs, kids. This is what happens when you do drugs. I don't know where he learned that, but I doubt he learned it at the police academy. I don't know if we have any cops watching and on any, whether it's Scope or YouTube, or feel free to chime in, because we know a lot of cops, and we haven't heard from one that said this was appropriate. Not one. Not in Chicago, not in the NYPD, not down here. And we know a lot of cops. They all basically reacted the same way. Holy crap. First of all, it's over. Second of all, even if it wasn't, that is not how you restrain a perp or a suspected perp. It is what they are. All right. It is 11:31, almost 11:32 on Thursday, May 28th. You guys are watching Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I am the People's Pundit, Rich Barris. You guys can follow me on Twitter right there if you don't already, at Peoples_Pundit. This is the point where I tell you not to forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel if you guys are watching on YouTube, and to share it with your friends and family that you may think would like the show. Also, don't forget to hit that notification bell. I might have forgotten to tell you guys that before. We have like an 80-something% rate of people who subscribe to the channel, but also have notifications turned on. That's what we want you guys to do. This way, you'll know when we go live. All right. That's important. All right. Also, if you guys are watching on Facebook Live, don't forget to like the page, People's Pundit Daily. We neglected our Facebook page for a really long time. And we're just now trying, because most of our audience, it was Twitter based. And now we're in the Facebook news feed, and we're a news publisher on Facebook, like we are on Google News. And it just dawned on us, the hell have we been doing? So even if you watch on YouTube, if you are a Facebook user, mosey on over from YouTube to Facebook and like the page, People's Pundit Daily. That would be great. And we'd love you. We'll double love you for it. All right. Scopers, my advice is to watch on either Facebook or YouTube, preferably YouTube. It is just a better stream. But if not, if you guys do and you love Periscope and you want to stick to it, just follow. It streams on my account. It streams on PPD. Follow one, follow both, and don't forget to give us those hearts. We'll love you back, right? All right. Looking like all right. I missed it. Looks like I'm missing something with the kid. All right, but that's okay. It is what it is. So, and then also the best way, of course, to support the show is to subscribe to People's Pundit Daily, which you can do by going to peoplespunditdaily.com and checking out one of the digital subscriptions, or taking the short link, which I could tell you, which is ppdnews.us/subscribe. It's that easy. ppdnews.us/subscribe. I just want to say one more time before we get back into the last segment, which I will try to I will try to answer some questions in case tomorrow is shortened. Just want to repeat one more time. If you guys know somebody that is, aspiring artist that you think is talented, tell them if they want to be showcased on the show, want to be played during an intermission or something, and we'll put their name down in the thing, give them their hat tip, their due credit. Send it over to contact@peoplespunditdaily.com. Either Laura and I will listen to it, or probably both. And if it's good, we'll put it up. All right. We'll check out. We got a few in this week. We'll check it out again at the end of the week, and we'll figure it out. We'll make a decision. All right. That's a really good question, and I lost it. It was about social media censorship, and we were bringing it up. Trump is saying that he is going to take. Oh, here we go. Bang. I hope you guys don't mind if I share your comments. All right. I won't share your face photos, but what could the executive on social media be? Any idea? That's a really good question. So, to be honest, there are two people in Trump's orbit who have ideas about combating what's the best word? Because censorship is not really, doesn't really encompass it, right? It's more like a political, like stifling political discourse, because it's really more than censorship. It's political targeting. I mean, censorship can be anything. It could be, I don't like this guy's vocabulary. I don't like how filthy he is. We're going to censor it. Maybe there's nudity in this video. We're going to censor it. Something like that. This is really political targeting based on a persuasion, right? And the president's son has been vocal on this, and then someone else who's been vocal on it is Brad Parscale, who really views this as an antitrust thing, right? So on executive action, though, that would, if you go that route, that would take an act of Congress. Executive actions would have to be much more narrow and much more, narrowly tailored. This is why I railed against it yesterday, or was it 2 days ago, when we discussed all mail-in voting and then putting the fact check thing on, this has been fact checked. The president made unsupported claims, and then using CNN, the Washington Post, and other outlets that pushed conspiracy theories and gave each other awards for years for pushing those conspiracies. And he said after that, basically, when they put that down there, that's when he brought this up. And 2 days ago, when we were talking about the actual credibility of those claims, even though we worded it wrong, there was a crux to the argument that does have credibility. And this is where, it gets tricky, because I went off because really folks, the truth is, for anything really to be effective, it needed to have been legislative, which is why I went off on a tangent the other day during the show about mail-in voting. The Republicans had both chambers of Congress for 2 years. After 2016, they had the House, they had the Senate, they had the White House. And they had a one-vote majority on the Supreme Court. And eventually, after Kennedy, they replaced, they put two more on there, two more conservatives on there. That is when, if you really want, I think Brad's approach is the only way, because at the heart of this, an executive order can't address the heart of this issue. Social media outlets essentially want their cake, and they want to have their cake and eat it too, the old expression. They want to be treated like media publishers, but they don't want to be able to have any of the downside to printing something or being liable for something that's not true. But they want the independence that publishers are afforded by courts and have been. So essentially, they want to be considered in the same field as a news publisher, but they don't want any of the risk. And that's why Brad, when he talks about this really is an antitrust issue. And this is something that has to be corrected by legislation, which a lot of people on the right wouldn't even support. And obviously, because nothing like this went anywhere. Because a lot of people on the right will view this as government intrusion. But in the end, there's not a whole lot he can do by executive action. There's not. I mean, can he come up with something that is a little bit of like a token gesture? I suppose. And I suppose they'll take him right to court. And some of these people, if you're a Trump supporter, I don't know if you remember when the audio tape of Mark Zuckerberg leaked, and he was talking about Elizabeth Warren being would be a nightmare to him and to them, because she views it much along the same way. That they should use the same principles behind monopoly and antitrust to break these people up. And Zuckerberg took the approach that, they could do it no better than we could do it, what they're asking us to do. But really, there should be laws that say no social media company could but make themselves the arbiter of truth, like a fact checker. That they are not authorities that should put themselves in a position of what is true and what is not. Yeah, that's where I'm going with this. Like, that's a great, let me just put this statement up, because this is the truth. It's not really going to be a meaningful action. It needs to be legislation. And until they take back one of them, it's just not going to happen. It will be an interesting court battle. That's a great point. That one's from Trevor. It will be an interesting court battle, which is, again, we talked about judges yesterday, the importance of judges, not just on the Supreme Court, but throughout the district courts of appeals. There are 13 of them, one being tailored to special cases, like McCarthy suing Pelosi over proxy voting. They handle unique issues of the federal government, but the rest are filed in the district that they're in. Something like this would probably end up first in the Ninth Circuit, which Trump hasn't flipped it, but he's done a lot of damage to it. The Ninth Circuit, which is often called the Ninth Circus, because they're overturned a lot. They were the most liberal court in the land. Barack Obama made very liberal. And they would, because we're talking about Silicon Valley, most of where these companies are, they'd end up there. But when that tape leaked with Mark Zuckerberg, he said something that was generally a principle that most of these companies don't agree with. He's generally alone on this, where he said we should not be getting in the business of deciding what is true and what is not. On the left side of the spectrum, Mark Zuckerberg has Democrats breathing down his neck that he does not fact check or have rules where political campaigns can't put up ads that aren't true or to bar ads altogether. He has taken the position that that is not Facebook's job. And we're in a free society, and in a free society, the argument should be allowed to be made, and it will be up to the voter, the people, the sovereign, to decide what they think is true and what is not. And the left hates him for it. They hate that about him. And I'm not saying he's an ally of the right, but that is his belief system. That is where he falls on these issues. I tend to agree with him on that. And then you have the Institute for Free Speech, which is, it's hard to tell where they are, but they're another lobby where they've been fighting a lot of these. The Democrats, especially Senate Democrats, tried to use the Russia hoax as a way to get legislation through the Congress that essentially hindered social media outlets from taking a hands-off approach. They would force them to be responsible for some of this stuff. If there was an ad that, it's the same principle with CNN, by the way. Trump goes to run an ad. They don't think it's true, even though most political ads are untrue. Somehow it only matters with Donald Trump. And they decide that they're not going to run it because it's false. They were essentially trying to get Facebook to do that. And there's the Institute for Free Speech. They fought against it. But in the end, what really just stopped it is that they just didn't have the numbers in both houses of Congress to get it. But until Republicans take it back, and it would have to be a Republican majority that really understands this issue, it's just not going to go anywhere, because the left has no interest in it. They have no interest in stop. It helps them. What interest would they have? Why would they care? It helps them. The only activity on the left, as far as legislation, has been to force social media companies to help them even more. I mean, it's crazy. We talked about the media handicap last week. Democrats essentially want to codify a social media handicap. They already have one. To be sure, they already have one. But they want to codify it. They want to make it law. They want to get the 4. And they want to make sure it's written in law. They get the 4 every game in 9-ball. Or the 6, really. Because social media does have a big impact. It does. Now, I don't think it I think the case that they tried to make, that whatever interference in 2016 somehow would, out influence the fact that all the halls of power, all corporate media, whether it's domestic or global, 50% of Fox News, they all supported Mrs. Clinton, from national to local papers. She had all of their support. She had the support of Wall Street, K Street, ABC, CBS, NBC, MSNBC, CNN, the New York Times, the Washington Post, 50% of Fox News, all of the affiliates owned by the New York Times, like the Gainesville Sun, for instance, down in Florida. So all of the local papers. She had the BBC, all of the global big media outlets, and somehow a couple ads on Facebook from Russian troll farms was going to out influence that. The proposition is absurd, but they want it codified. So after 2016, some of the policies these social media outlets have undertaken, that is to just help one side, their preferred side. It absolutely is, but that's not good enough for them. So that's how serious this is. And whatever order Donald Trump does eventually issue, I totally agree with what Trevor is saying. If it's not very narrow, it's going to the court. It's going to the court. So the answer to that, the big, long, end run answer to it, is there really just isn't a whole lot he could do by executive order. There's just not. All right. We're doomed. Oh, don't be a pessimist. In truth, I know it's hard to swallow. It really is hard sometimes to look around and see how we got here. It really is. And now social media is part of the overall construct. And I should do a show on what the construct is. But it essentially is a system of norms and institutions solely geared toward perpetuating the status quo. And as of right now, there's one political party that helps affect that agenda. So they're helping that political party. But it's everything from the Congressional Budget Office, which is their sole purpose is to make sure that we don't roll back any of the Great Society policies that we've put in place. Their job is to static score things like the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, basically to keep policy from ever being reformed. Any policy that makes government bigger and stronger, that was its mandate. The CBO is not a nonpartisan organization. That is a load of crap. The CBO sat in the White House with Barack Obama, crafting how to lie to the American people about Obamacare, about the impact of it, about what it is, meaning a tax, a penalty, a shared responsibility payment. They are not a nonpartisan or even a bipartisan organization. That is a load of crap. But that's a great example of an actual institution that is a part of the construct. Other institutions are media institutions, but there are also norms that back up these institutions. The norm, one of the norms, is the idea that we should even look to the CBO as an authority, right? And now we have these social media outlets that are basically creating online norms. And it's all to help their political party, their preferred political party, because they're going to help perpetuate the status quo. They're doing pretty damn good in this status quo. They are the modern day fat cats. It is almost completely backwards. The world is upside down from what they remember, what they claim to fight for. What used to be the Gilded Era. Jack is a guild. Mark is a guild. These guys make Carnegie and Rockefeller look like true career philanthropists. These are not, impartial players. They don't believe in the system that's benefiting them. But that's because it really, I mean, it's really, this is what I call hologram capitalism. If it was true capitalism, they would not be able to have the edges that they have, these competitive advantages. It just wouldn't, it wouldn't be a case. But they are the very ideas. They embody the very ideas they're supposed to be progressives, which the progressive movement rose originally as a response to the Gilded Era, to the guilds. And now they are the damn guilds. They are. They're just modern. They're more powerful. If you ask me, they're way more powerful than the other guys ever were. All right, let me take a look and see what is yeah, look, he's surrounded. I know that Zuckerberg's does seem like he pays lip service to a lot of this stuff, but then makes these decisions. He's surrounded by people that want to use the power of the company to advance an agenda. If it wasn't for his friend Peter Thiel, he would have caved on the decision with political advertisements. He absolutely would have caved on it. So he is, I'm not trying to apologize for the guy. I'm simply saying that he's surrounded by a bunch of people who don't agree with him. So, he's not going to come down on the issue, like even in a manner that he may personally agree with. He's not going to come down on that every time, on that side every time. And just to answer the other question, George Floyd was 46 years old. And, why did they stop? I can't believe I even blew past that. He was supposed to have been under the influence. That's why. But 46 years old is too young to die. It's too young to die. Life is so short and precious. And, if you're supposed to be pro-life, I kind of agree with Chris Christie on this. I think he says the best. If you're pro-life, then you're pro-life everywhere, right? You're pro-life from the time of conception to the time of death, everywhere in between. The issue of life versus, I hate choice. That's such a garbage name. It's not true. It's not an accurate way to portray what being an abortionist is. But the idea, the debate over life, it's been dominated, of course, by abortion. And then the secondary aspect of that has always been like the Dr. Kevorkian question, whether or not you should be able to take your own life. But everywhere in between, a lot of this movement has nothing to say on all of those issues in between. The guy was 46 years old. Death is a steep punishment, even if he was drunk or under the influence of something. I don't see any police officers hurt. Again, in the case of Michael Brown, very different. Michael Brown never put his damn hands up. He never said, don't shoot. That is a lie. He tried to relieve a police officer of his firearm and he got killed, like anybody else would have gotten, regardless of color. Well, if you're white and you try to take a police officer's sidearm and kill him with it, you will end up dead. If you are black, you will end up dead. If you are Asian, you will end up dead. I don't know where the hell everybody else grew up. But in New York and New Jersey, where I did, you try to take a firearm from a police officer and try to kill him with it, it's probably going to end with your last heartbeat. And it doesn't matter what your color is. That's going to happen. Michael Brown, totally different case than what we have here. Even the case again in Georgia. You try to take a firearm from a man, which is what happened if you watch all of the videos and the angles. They did not run up on him with a pickup truck while he was just driving, while he was just having a nice stroll down the road. And then out of nowhere, they blew him away with a shotgun. That is not what happened. They were following a suspected burglar, copper, and other wiring material had already been missing from similar sites. And for those of you who don't know, people rob construction sites to get metals, coppers, whatever they can to bring to the dump, and they get a certain amount of money for each pound. So you steal a roll of copper, you can get a couple bucks. And the damn dump never asks any questions. They don't ask, "Where'd you get this from?" They don't give a damn. They ask, how much were you thinking of getting for the pound, per pound, or whatever it is? That's all they ask. And he was suspected of casing out things, maybe even have taken something. They called the police and they followed him while they were waiting for the police. He realized he was going to get arrested. So he turned, after making a right to try to evade, he double backed, and he tried to take the guy's shotgun away from him as he repeatedly punched him in the side of the head. That is what happened to him. And in the struggle, the man did what he is in perfect reason. He is well within his right to do, especially under Georgia law. Georgia law does not obligate you to retreat if you have a firearm and somebody else tries to take it from you or attack you simply because you have a bigger gun than they do or a more dangerous weapon. In New Jersey, it's ridiculous. We, years ago, had a friend who was incarcerated because he came home one day and somebody he knew was sexually assaulting his wife. Forcefully. It was a full-blown rape. He was a worker and he had a box cutter. And because when he tried to stop the man, obviously physically was going to stop him, the guy grabbed like a log of wood and started hitting him with a log of wood for the fire. And he was still wearing his tool belt. So he took out his box cutter and he cut him from chin to belly button. He did. When the police came, they arrested him because he used a knife while the guy only had a block of wood. It was crazy. That's the North. And that's a great example of why I will never go back to the North. I can't abide by stupidity like that in law. You know what I'm talking about, Lisa. You know what I'm talking about. You cannot defend yourself with a weapon that is of greater lethality. Now, he eventually got a better lawyer. And I think he did like 2 years or something, even though he was supposed to do it. It was like 15 years. But he eventually got a better lawyer and he got out. But not before his wife hung herself out of guilt and shame. It was a very tragic story. But those are the laws that the left want to see implemented all over the South and other areas of the country where you are not obligated to retreat. So in Georgia, unlike, our old friend, he would never have been arrested for that. But they're going after that law. He was under no obligation to retreat. He died. Jeffrey, you're talking about the perpetrator? He died. That's what I'm saying. I mean, he did kill him. In the process of defending his wife, he did kill him. He killed the perpetrator of the rape. Because when he got there and he did try to fight him off his wife, the guy had a big block of wood and he was beating him and he was on his back when he finally took the box cutter out of his tool belt and defended himself. He was getting bludgeoned with a piece of cut wood. He was getting beat in his face with it. And he said, all I could think about was how if I don't win this fight, what is going to happen to my wife? So he was getting beat in the head with the wood, and he just was petrified of what would happen if he lost consciousness. So he took the box cutter and he killed the guy. And he went to jail. They came and they arrested him in front of his 2 girls. 3, actually. 3, right, Laura? 3 at the time. Right? And then while he was in jail, he did not get out soon enough. While he was in jail, his wife committed suicide. It was a tragic, tragic story of a beautiful family that was destroyed because of a stupid liberal law put into effect because the left hates gun rights. Anyway, that's what they want to do in a place like Georgia, and the media frames that story incorrectly. These two guys did not chase him down while he was just having a nice little jog down the road. That's a load of crap. Load of crap. But the point is to go after, like the case of George Zimmerman was with Trayvon Martin. The point is, like Robert Barnes said earlier, I told you the story. The point is to get us to fight with each other. And the final result is to take away these laws that are Second Amendment culture laws, like stand your ground. That was the whole entire point with Trayvon Martin. They spent years after that case trying to get, well, we didn't get a guilty verdict. But you know what? We should take this as an opportunity to get rid of stand your ground. Why? He was well within his right and the law to defend himself and shoot Trayvon Martin. Anyway, it is noon. It is 1 minute after noon, and alas, our time has passed. Just remember, it could be, I'll shoot it out on my Twitter. We'll give you a heads up, but it's possible that we won't get the show going tomorrow until 11 o'clock, because if our drive-by graduation, doesn't end early enough, then I'll be held up and running a little late. But if not, we'll just count on doing it at noon, freewheeling Friday. All right. Again, folks, it is Thursday, May 28th, and you were watching. Thanks for watching Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I'm the People's Pundit, Rich Barris. Follow me on Twitter right there at Peoples_Pundit if you don't already. Before we leave the show today, don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel and hit the little notification bell to let you know when we go live. And then if you're on Facebook, don't forget to like the page People's Pundit Daily. And if you guys, even if you're on Facebook, go to YouTube and subscribe to the channel, and we'll double love you for it. Same thing, ditto with Facebook Live. We're trying to get those metrics up, and we're having a great run, and thanks for doing that. The ultimate way to support the show, of course, is to subscribe to PPD, which you can do by going to ppdnews.us/subscribe. ppdnews.us/subscribe. We will see you back tomorrow at either 10 or 11, but watch out for it, because I will keep you posted. And if you guys like the page or subscribe to the channel, it will tell you which time we're gonna start. I'm gonna shoot for the usual time, 10, but it could be 11. Thanks for watching, folks. All the best. We will see you tomorrow on Freewheeling Friday.
How much you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends, and spread a little love just for a little fun? I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be. I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. There's rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love, because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
We can get on a plane and take steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to spear overnight, just to give in to the need and leave it all behind.
Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker.